Hey guys, today I've got another Dream Drop Distance challenge video. I'm going to attempt one of the hardest and craziest challenges that I can think of. Can we beat Dream Drop Distance using only Dream Eaters? Or the alternative title, which I prefer, is Can the Dream Eaters beat Dream Drop Distance? First of all, this video is only for Sora. A Riku version is coming. I made the thumbnail, so it's happening. Riku's challenge is a lot harder than Sora's challenge, so it'll be a while for that. Because this playthrough is only for Sora though, I did take advantage of the fact that Riku has no restrictions in his playthrough. What that means is that we can use commands and attack as Riku. What's more important is the grinding we can do as Riku for the Dream Eaters, since Sora and Riku share the exact same Dream Eaters. This challenge was also done on a New Game Plus save for those of you wondering, as we get to carry over our Dream Eaters from the prior save, though they are reverted to level 1. Anyways, because we can play as Riku, what I did first was complete all of the worlds available to us in the first half of the game, so that includes Traverse Town, the Hunchback world, Tron's world, and Monstro. I didn't even touch the Sora campaign until I got as far as I could get with Riku. When I did have to inevitably drop to Sora, I just paused the game as Sora and dropped back to Riku, so the drop meter wasn't really a problem. One of the times that I dropped to Sora as Riku, I got very lucky. Normally we are supposed to attack this electric circuit in the 3rd district in Traverse Town to continue the game, but I think my Dream Eater attacked it, so I got lucky. I'm fairly certain that Halberd did something, but this was a headache that we got to avoid, as usually Sora has to attack the electric circuit. Basically after that, you can run the entirety of Traverse Town up to the Hoko Monkey boss fight as Sora, as you won't actually have to fight anyone. However, we aren't just playing the Riku campaign first to complete the story. The most important thing about playing as Riku, as you complete the different worlds, is to use and equip the right Dream Eaters so that you can earn Link points. You either want a party of 3 Mimi Bunnies, 3 Halberds, or any combination of the two. This is absolutely crucial. We don't care about any other Dream Eaters until we have hundreds of Link points. These 2 Dream Eaters give one ability that will be critical to when we play as Sora, which I will talk about in a bit. Just make sure that you have them equipped the entire time that you're playing as Riku. You will not earn enough Link points when you complete all of the worlds as Riku before you have to head back to Traverse Town. So you don't have to worry that you are not optimizing your Dream Eater setup or anything like that. When I completed the worlds with Riku, I still had a couple of 100 Link points that I needed to get the commands we need. The fastest way to get Link points without actually spending more hours of fighting is to play minigames. Specifically, you only need to play the water barrel minigame for Link points. Nothing else. That will be the only thing that you need to buy from the Moogles. Here's a Charlie quick tip that I'm sure most of you know. When playing DDD on the 2.8 collection, by quitting the game, you are able to get some experience without actually having to play. We will have to do this a lot, as we will need a lot of experience to get Link points from our Dream Eaters. The good news is that you should have enough money by now that you can buy all the water barrels that you need since you finished half of Riku's story. If for some reason you don't, then you can sell basically everything that isn't Cure, as we know that it's possible to beat the game without any commands. That's the best plug for my no attack commands video that I can think of. Anyways, after maybe an hour of playing with the Dream Eaters, I finally got what I was looking for. One of the last commands that we get for the Mimi Bunny and Halberd Dream Eater is the very illustrious and powerful command Break Time. This command is exclusive to Sora and is essentially the reason that this challenge is even feasible and why I didn't outright reject doing this challenge. For those of you that remember, Break Time was first introduced in Birth by Sleep. It recovered health and focus. The amount of recovery you got depended on when you pressed the button prompt. In DDD, we also get break time, but there's good news and bad news. The good news is that we don't have to time our button presses like in BBS. We just have to activate the command and let Sora dance for a few seconds. The reason why we grind for hours is because break time will fully refill the link gauge of the 2 Dream Eaters on the field, which is a huge plus. This is exactly why we have the Halberd and the Mimi Bunny Dream Eaters, as these are the only 2 Dream Eaters that give us break time. The only reason we want 3 of these abilities is because the base reload time of a break time command is 50 seconds. We can increase the speed with attack haste, but we're still going to have to wait. Basically, the more break time commands that we have in our command deck, the more chances we have to get the link gauge refilled, since we can use the command more than one time. I hope that you guys picked up on that. I said the more chance we have to get the link gauge refill. The bad news is that the break time reward is not randomized. Break time can refill the link gauge, which is what we want, but it's just as likely to refill the party's health or the drop meter. That means that we have a 1 in 3 chance of getting the link gauge refill. Break time is the main way that we will refill our link gauge for the entire playthrough, and we need a full link gauge because that is the only way that we will be able to attack. Yes, for the entire playthrough, we will have to use the Dream Eaters to attack. We cannot avoid not having the command. That is why I got 3 of these commands, and I recommend getting more of them. As far as I know, there are only 4 ways to make the link gauge go up. The first one, which everyone knows, is through the Dream Eaters attacking. When they attack, their link gauge goes up. If you and your Dream Eater attack the same enemy at the same time, the link gauge goes up a little bit more. If they take damage, the link gauge also goes up. We can theoretically use this strategy alone and never use break time or anything else that I'm about to mention to beat this challenge. It is 100% possible to beat the game by just waiting for Dream Eaters to attack and boost the link gauge on their own. It'll just increase the length required to beat the game by like a million times though. Whilst that can work, it's impractical to do due to our second way of increasing the link gauge, break time. There's no need to waste our time or effort letting Dream Eaters fight for literal minutes to just use a 5-second attack that'll do some damage. Break time will refill the link gauges automatically, and luckily for us, I basically start Sora's story with 3 break time commands since I played through half of Riku's story. The third way is to use link block. As the name of the command suggests, with each successful block, you will refill some of the link gauge. It's exclusive to Sora and definitely a useful ability to have. You can get it from the KO, Kabuto, or the Staggerceps ability link for 10 link points, and luckily it'll be the first thing you can unlock on both boards, so you won't have to grind to get it. The fourth and final way to refill your link gauge is through items, and there are 3 types of items that do this. Items are far more useful than break time since they don't have a 50-second reload. The only difficulty will be in getting said items. Our first 2 items are elixirs and mega elixirs, and they will fully refill your link gauge. As far as I know, there is only one way to get these items, and that is through the Dream Eater ability links. There are a few chests that we can find in the game, but we will not rely on those. As for the Dream Eater way to get these items, there will only be 3 Dream Eaters that can do this: Ducky Goose, Drakquak, and the R&R Seal. As luck would have it, these items are the last things unlocked on the grid for each of these Dream Eaters, so they will never be used. However, things get interesting with our third and final item, Dream Candy. Dream Candy isn't as time consuming to get, and we can theoretically farm it forever. One problem with Dream Candy is actually acquiring it. These items, whilst easy to farm, are still a pain to farm. The Ducky Goose board is the far easier one to grind since it's the first slot, but we can't make the Ducky Goose Dream Eater indefinitely since we can farm its material, so we won't use that. The second way to get Dream Candy is to open chests. Unfortunately, there are literally only 4 chests in the game that contain Dream Candy, so it's not super helpful. The third way of collecting Dream Candy, which is the most optimal way, though very time consuming, is to play Flick Rush. It costs 200 medals in the metal shop to buy Dream Candy this way, but you can farm it. And those are all the ways that we can use to refill the link gauge. It sounds like a lot, but realistically you'll only be using one of them. After all of that setup, I can finally talk about the rules of the challenge. I hope that I haven't made you guys bored yet, but knowing about break time and why I have the command so early, as well as the other stuff, is important. Sorry if it went on for too long, I never know how in depth to go with these challenges. There's a bit more information about how to raise the link gauge, but I'll cover it in the Riku video since we don't have to use those tactics here, thankfully, as this video is long enough. But we are finally able to start the challenge. The rules will be the standard set as you guys can expect. Reality shifts are allowed since we need to use them for some bosses and areas of the game. The only way that I am allowed to attack is to use Dream Eaters though. That's it. I am not allowed to use flow motion attacks or any attack commands. The Dream Eaters need to beat the game, not Sora. But I am allowing the use of Cure, since that doesn't harm enemies and I'm not a god at this game. This isn't the no command challenge. The Ursula tutorial doesn't count since we don't yet have Dream Eaters. Dropping sequences do not count since those are awful. And again guys, this video is only for Sora. Riku sections don't count. Riku can use regular attacks and flow motion attacks, he has no restrictions. And those are all the rules. The last thing that I want to say before we officially start the video is that there may be a better team of Dream Eaters than the ones I use. Honestly, for the first half of the game I was experimenting with different Dream Eater link attacks, which is why I have various Dream Eaters. I also wanted the video to be a bit interesting. I did make a Dream Eater showcase video which you guys can check out, and I used that for reference when choosing which Dream Eaters to use, as I have very limited knowledge about Dream Eaters. Just like Ursula, our first mandatory enemy encounter in Traverse Town won't count. We don't yet have any Dream Eaters in our party, so we will have to swing the keyblade and use commands to get past this fight. I should say that the challenge officially starts once we have Dream Eaters. After that fight though, we get to drop to Riku and do our hours of grinding that I talked about near the start of the video to prepare for Sora. Now we can finally fight the Hoko Monkey. The Dream Eaters that I chose for the first boss fight were Ursa Circus and the Prickle Mane. The main reason is that they do ground damage, and the Hoko Monkey is usually on the ground. Unlike some bosses, he doesn't fly, so we should be able to hit him most of the time. Ursa Circus actually does decent damage by just spinning Sora around. Luckily, Sora doesn't get dizzy after this attack. And for the Prickle Mane link attack, we will have to then spin it around, and that does some decent damage to the Hoko Monkey. Once you use the two link attacks, jump down to the ground away from Hoko Monkey and quickly do a break time command, and hopefully it'll refill the link gauge. When I did return to him, he broke the ceiling. But even with that, I would still argue that it's still easy since we can now hide in a corner whilst inside the building and dance. But then I remembered that my party had 3 Dream Eaters, so I swapped out one of my party members for the Penguin Dream Eater and used Unwind to finally win the fight. One of the challenges of this playthrough will just be choosing the right Dream Eater, so if you are going to do this, I recommend looking at my showcase video. Next up is the Hunchback world. Breakable walls are affected by Dream Eater attacks and the drop containers are affected as well, so I was happy about that. For this boss, I used the Beetle-like and Sora Dream Eater. The reason being that these 2 Dream Eaters are big, and with the size of them, they are very likely to hit Wargoyle on the ground. The first attack I used was the Beetle-like Dream Eater's attack. He basically moves his trunk left and right whilst walking forward, and I used this to damage the boss. I didn't mention this with the Hoko Monkey, but every time that Sora uses a Dream Eater link attack, he is invulnerable. I then used the Sora link attack, and this worked quite well actually. I'll talk more about him later as he has a few interesting moments, but just know that he will become the best Dream Eater in this challenge. The next Dream Eater that I used was the Zolifant Dream Eater. Zolifant is basically another version of the Beetle-like Dream Eater since they both use the same link attack, so he should have basically killed the boss here. However, Wargoyle kept running away from me, so I was actually forced to play the boss fight for a little longer. I was also able to get the proper reward for my break time command on my second try, so I'm not complaining. And I used the Zolifant Dream Eater one last time to finish the job, and I finally won. For the Tron boss fight, we want to make this a first-person shooter type of challenge. I used the Stagger Seps and KO Kabuto Dream Eater links. This is for a few reasons. Tron is very annoying and he likes to be near Sora most of the time to do his close range attacks. And these attacks take at least 30 seconds. These first-person shooter Dream Eaters grant Sora invulnerability during the entire segment. They take a while to shoot all of their shots, which mean we can wait out Tron's attacks. But by far, the most important thing about the shooter Dream Eaters is that they do decent enough damage to Tron to justify their existence. I got very lucky in that I didn't miss a lot of my shots as well, thanks to my years of playing Call of Duty, so I was happy about that. But seriously, this part here is important. I managed to get in the correct break time ability before Tron flipped the world. This is important. Usually when he flips the world, he will immediately start running towards Sora and basically repeat the first minute of the fight where he was not social distancing and attack Sora at close range. Once again I activated the FPS mode and after that he flipped the world. And like clockwork, when he flips the world he'll immediately jump down next to Sora and fight next to us again. Theoretically, this fight is easier than Wargoyle. The area that we fight Tron in is so large that we won't even need to run away from him, since he just likes to disappear every so often. The problem is that Tron likes to run to Sora and he runs very quickly. Everything just lined up during this fight, but you can get in at least one break time when he flips the world if you use flow motion on the walls for like 5 seconds. Anyways, the final shooter minigame will be the last time that we get to play Call of Duty before we kill Tron. Next up is Pinocchio's World. I actually struggled more with the mandatory common enemy fights than the actual boss fight for this level, and I have some bad news for you guys. I am not sure if we failed the challenge. In one of the mandatory fights, we have to fight some Dream Eaters in this bouncy house area, but we don't have any of our Dream Eaters. Therefore, we can't attack and we are stuck in this fight forever, so I was forced to actually use the attack command. I don't think we failed the challenge since the game literally took away our Dream Eaters, but this would be the first case where I can potentially fail. As for the Clobster, I legit think that fighting it is one of the most fun bosses in the challenge. And he is definitely one of the easiest bosses we have had so far. As a lot of you guys may already know, this boss runs away from Sora and likes to keep his distance. That is basically what we want in every boss fight, so we can use break time whenever. When he runs away from us, we literally can use a break time command. I did fail with my first attack, but that's okay because I'm going to be using break time. The Dream Eater does attack, but it's so infrequent that it doesn't matter. When he does his lawnmower move, where he just comes down slowly towards Sora, if you fall down the step area, you can use a break time attack to refill your link gauge. Not at all difficult, and it's super safe and easy to do this. The Dream Eaters that I chose for this fight are the Sora, Terra, and Fishbone. Fishbone has this crazy laser move which is nice, but I want you guys to look at the utter destruction that Sora Terra does. This guy works like a charm, just melting away health bars. I cannot express how much fun it is to just be on top of one of the harder Dream Eater bosses doing this stupid attack animation while doing so much damage. This is definitely one of my favorite Dream Eater attacks, and I'm glad that you guys know how awesome this Dream Eater is now. and later in the fight, he'll just start flying away up in the air for some reason. This makes it hard to hit him, but break time guys. To beat this boss, I used the Triceratops Dream Eater one last time. Instead of hitting him in the air and jumping like before, I decided to have the spiked ball enter his butt for critical damage, and he took a lot of damage from this. So much damage that we were finally able to enter the last stage of the fight. A cool thing about the Triceratops Dinosaur Dream Eater is that for regular enemies, when he rolls on them, they get flattened. But for bosses, since they can't be flattened, they take a lot of damage and the game makes us bounce. I absolutely recommend any of the roll call Dream Eaters, but the Triceratops Dream Eaters are definitely the better ones since they are a bigger ball. Guys, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is the fight against Clobster is 100% doable with only Dream Eaters. The bad news is that to save Monstro, we must attack the wall with the keyblade. I used the 3 Dream Eaters in my party to attack the wall several times and it never broke. So to actually finish this fight, we must use a non-Dream Eater attack to actually break the wall. We may have officially failed the challenge. I think this is the saddest thing as we did the hard part, but the game really wants Sora to swing the keyblade. I'm not sure if to count this as a challenge failed. Please leave a comment below. Next up is the Traverse Town second visit. The boss rush is actually not as hard as you might think, believe it or not. For this boss, I only use 2 Dream Eaters. I use Heavy Rep and Beat-alike. The good news is that Hoko Monkey is the toughest of the 3 fights, so if you can beat him, the next 2 will be relatively easy. Hoko Monkey's range is incredible, and that's why he's the hardest. However, all of the bosses are grounded, so we are good to use any type of Dream Eater here. I would say that you have the most options for this fight compared to the entire game. As you guys can see, Heavy Rep's Flame Wheel of Death is deadly. This made me so happy as it melts bars of health away. Even Beat-alike isn't half bad, and was able to kill the Hoko Monkey. Of course, immediately after you beat the boss, you want to use as many break time commands as you can to refill your link gauge. I was super lucky again in this playthrough and got my link meter refill on my 3rd break time use a second before getting attacked by Wargoyle. And guys, my luck wasn't over. Immediately after refilling my link gauges, Wargoyle decided to lie down, so Heavy Rep was able to melt away more than half of his health bar. Use Heavy Rep and Pseudo Neku if you do this fight guys. I then started taking too much damage and panicked, so I used a Beat-alike Dream Eater attack for the invincibility frames, and it worked in killing Wargoyle. Unfortunately, Heavy Rep was about to die, so I immediately went to revive him after killing Wargoyle. When we have to fight the Clobster boss, he has a bit more defense than the prior 2 bosses, but strategically he is the easiest boss. He likes to stay in the center of the arena, and we are basically free to move around and use break time. We just have to hope that he doesn't decide to attack when we use the break time command, but he shouldn't cause too much of an issue. Heavy Rep did a good amount of damage, and my Beat-alike attack did get me trapped behind some of the poles for most of its attack, but you are able to just go to a corner and use break time, so this fight isn't at all hard. I was honestly very worried about this boss rush, specifically because of how small the area is to fight the enemies, and thought that I would never be able to use break time and have to use the link block strategy. But we did it guys. Despite it being small, Sora is still able to find time to dance. Now we are in the 3 Musketeers world. Guys, I'm not sure if I failed the challenge. When we are on the carriage, we must attack this dinosaur following us. However, we don't have any Dream Eaters to attack said dinosaur. So did I fail the challenge again? I'm going to say this won't be counted toward the challenge since we literally have no Dream Eaters, but this is another situation like in Prankster's Paradise. I did have to attack the dinosaur by swinging the keyblade, so I understand if you guys think I failed again. Now we have to fight Pete and the Beagle Boys. I actually messed up at the start of the fight and used the Unison Rush command. It happens to the best of us. As you could see, I had the 2 Triceratops Dream Eaters, so I'm not messing around with bosses anymore. But I was able to recover from this blunder, as my first roll of break time gave me the link refill that we needed. Just like the other 2 boss fights, the roll call Dream Eater attack just makes Sora get boosted in the air, and we are able to do a lot of damage. This is so funny to me, guys. We are just bouncing on the Beagle Boys. And with that, 2 of the Beagle Boys will go down. For those of you that have noticed, sometimes I get hit when I use break time, and I just want to spend a few seconds talking about this cool effect that break time has. In Birth by Sleep, if you use the break time command and the enemy hits you, you will get knocked out of break time. However, for some common enemies and even bosses, depending on when they hit you, Sora will be invincible. That's why it's actually a completely viable strategy to use break time during any boss fight, as there's a chance that the boss's attacks won't register. When you do have to fight Pete alone, the roll call attack is still pretty broken against him, as we will just keep bopping on him and flying into the air. This honestly doesn't get old if you guys try this. The only attack which is kind of annoying is when he swings the props at Sora as they track Sora and move on the stage. These long and over grandiose moves just waste time though. They can hit Sora, but the damage is nothing too crazy. You can successfully use break time after these sequences, so it's not really a big deal, but I was incredibly lucky enough to get the link gauge refill. I hope that you guys know what this means. Time to use roll call, and with that single roll call, I was able to beat Pete. This should be a meme, guys. Next up is the Symphony of Sorcery world, and guys, I may have failed the challenge for another time. I'm actually not sure. When we fight Spelican, we are just using flow motion to slide. I can't really control that. Whilst I was grinding on the rainbow that Spelican made, I was sort of just enjoying the ride, but then something amazing happened. I guess I passed Spelican and he smelled Sora's farts, and that counted as a hit. Seriously, I didn't attack the boss. He took damage from Sora grinding using flow motion. I would assume it was a flow motion attack, but I never really attacked, and by attack I never hit the attack button to damage him, so should it count? If a tree falls in the forest, but I cut it down wearing earplugs, did it make a noise? I don't know. Later in the fight, I did have to do a second Rainbow Road with the Spelican, so I either doubly failed the challenge or I am doubly talking about something that doesn't matter. Just like the first time, I ended up grinding past the Spelican and the game did auto damage or auto attacking for Sora. Leave a comment below, guys. There are a lot of things in this run which I'm not sure about if I failed. As for the boss itself, it's fairly easy to use break time during this fight. There are so many platforms that you can move to and hide from Spelican. It's quite amazing that for a late game boss that the challenge gets this easy. You can literally go behind some of the moon rocks or just stand in your current position since Spelican is always moving. This is the second easiest fight for the challenge since we can use heal and use break time whenever we want. Spelican itself moves around so much, guys, and his attacks aren't frequent enough to disrupt your break time dance, so the fight will go smoothly. So using break time is all well and good. As for damaging him, that's a different story. Whilst refilling the link meter is easy, the fight itself is long and boring. I also wasn't messing around in this fight, so I used the 2 dinosaur Dream Eaters and they actually got promoted to permanent party members. Spelican likes to move around a lot, and specifically he likes to move to the floating rock platforms in the air and cast spells. There are no Dream Eaters in the game that allow Sora to move in the air. The flying Dream Eaters that literally fly in the air will only carry Sora around on the ground and will never fly up. I guess Sora is fat or something. There's not really an elegant solution to this problem when Spelican goes on top of the rocks. You can wait for Spelican to finish his attack and then continue fighting him, or you can use flow motion all the way to the top of a rock and damage him that way. This fight is one of the longest fights in the challenge, specifically because Pelican teleports a lot and isn't always on the ground. But the good thing is that his health doesn't regenerate like some other bosses in this game, so even if we do a little damage, it'll count. Eventually, with time, we will win, and with those somber words, I was actually able to beat Pelican. Overall, this fight wasn't at all hard, it's just very long because Pelican can fly. And finally, we have the world that never was, and we are about to face our final boss for the video, Xemnas. Just as a reminder, this video is just covering the Sora story. The Riku video is coming, I promise. It'll take a while, but it's coming. And please consider liking the video and doing all the stuff the YouTube algorithm likes, guys. Anyways, it's very fitting that Xemnas is our last fight, because he is the hardest boss in Sora's playthrough. Like, so hard that I had to level up just to have a better defense before attempting to fight him. I went up a few levels in the hour I grinded, but I should have grinded more. I'm not sure if you guys have even noticed this, but all of the bosses that we have fought in this playthrough have an off switch. An off switch is a place or time that we can use to run away to be safe for a few seconds to use break time. Xemnas has no off switch. He has no downtime. If he's not attacking Sora, you're playing the wrong game, or maybe Kingdom Hearts 2 Xemnas, because Dream Drop Distance Xemnas is relentless. How often does he attack Sora? Yes. Oh my god. You will not be given many opportunities to use break time. Remember I said that break time has some invincibility frames? Well, we will have to rely on it for this fight. As you guys can probably see, I was taking no chances with Xemnas. I had my 2 roll call Dream Eaters for this fight, and my FPS Dream Eater sitting on reserve for when I needed him. This is the hardest fight in the game for Sora. Luckily for us, the memes are still very much alive for this fight, and we can use roll call to damage him. What's actually cool about this fight is that Xemnas will fly into the air to do some attacks, but when roll call damages an enemy, it bounces in the air, so you can get pretty high in the air doing this. I'm not sure if there's a limit, but I have never gotten so high during this fight or thought it was possible. As for when to use break time, there's really only 2 times that I can say with any certainty. The first time is when he decides to throw buildings at Sora. Just find a corner and use break time. This should give you enough time to get in 1 or maybe even 2 break time dances, and hopefully that refills your link gauge. The second time that you can refill the link gauge with even more certainty is when you have to use a reality shift on the building and Xemnas is knocked out in this area that we have to grind to. I recommend just using break time here, honestly. Don't hit him out of his sleepy time state, dance the night away instead. Xemnas won't take a lot of damage if you were to use a link attack in a sleepy time state, so you would just be wasting a link attack. In total, this fight took me about 7 minutes to do on my successful attempt, but we will eventually beat Xemnas using only Dream Eaters. I absolutely love that I ended the fight using a shooting Dream Eater, guys. I don't know why, but I feel like it's the best way to win. Something I didn't know, which I feel most people don't know, is that Dream Eaters can shoot through Xemnas' barrier. This is awesome, guys. Sora's regular commands aren't powerful enough to penetrate Xemnas' barriers, but Trap Shot is. And now we can finally answer the question, can you beat Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance using only Dream Eaters? Or can Dream Eaters beat Dream Drop Distance? Well, the answer is both yes and no. I was not expecting so many caveats in the challenge and was expecting to fail early on. Obviously, we won't count the Ursula tutorial or the first Dream Eater fight since we didn't yet unlock Dream Eaters. But at the same time, I'm not sure if we should count the carriage boss in the Musketeers world or the mandatory bouncy house fight in Pinocchio's world. Although we have unlocked Dream Eaters, the game takes them away from us so we can't actually use them. And it's a similar story with this Pelican, as we can't not attack the boss to progress the game. And as is the case with this challenge, I didn't actually attack him. I was just grinding away and he smelled Sora's farts, and that damaged him. I think the only time that you could argue that I failed this challenge was during the Monstro fight, when I had to free him by attacking the wall, and I was forced to swing the keyblade. I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think about this challenge, or if you think I failed the challenge, as I'm legit not sure. I'm going to say that I beat the challenge using only Dream Eaters. The only time I think you could say that I failed was with Monstro, but I attacked an object, not an enemy, and the Dream Eaters were not able to damage the wall. This was surprisingly very fun to do, at least after the hours I put in with Riku grinding to get break time. There is still a lot of waiting and some luck during boss fights, as you're going to be praying that you don't get hit when Sora is dancing. This is a challenge that I 100% recommend doing and not doing. If you put in all the hours at the start of the game to get Sora ready to use break time, then I recommend the challenge. Otherwise, don't do this challenge. I can tell you right now that if you want to do this challenge, do it for Sora, not Riku though. Riku's campaign is far more difficult and grindy in almost every way than Sora, and you guys will be able to experience the pain of childbirth with me when I release the Riku video. I do have a newfound appreciation for Dream Eaters, though I still don't like having to level them up. Playing Nintendogs with them is not really that fun, but luckily you only have to do that at the start of the challenge. I hope that you all enjoyed my video. Please like the video and subscribe, as these challenges do take me a while to do. If you have any challenges for me, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching.